So, Oliver Wood, I want to welcome you to the airways to WGDR. Thank you for being our guest. You and your band and you and your brother and your other bandmate are going to be playing at the Flynn this coming Thursday, the Wood Brothers. And love to talk more about your career in music and your guys, what you're doing. And I have lots of questions, having listened to a few of your albums as well.
Okay, well, I'm happy to be here, Ben. Let's do it.
Yeah, so this tour, I don't know if it's corresponding, but this is your 20th year as a band, right? 2006
Um,
is when you released the first record.
First Wood Brothers record, 2006.
Yeah.
That record and the band are basically that old. When we say band, like when Chris and I started, it was really a duo, which it still
Hmm.
counts as a band. But to clarify, we started out as a humble folk duo traveling around in a minivan, and
Hmm.
so the extra musician and the crew and the Flynn Theater and the tour bus and all that stuff came way later. So
Uh-huh. Are you thinking of this as like your 20th year
oh
tour?
yeah.
Is that yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, informally. I mean, I think even just Chris and I and our manager Liz as a unit that's worked together this long and kept this thing going and as we like to say, grew it really slowly. We call it a slow rise to the middle. We
I love
just like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, we love that too, and appreciate it after 20 years. You know, you appreciate, wow, you've seen a lot of other things fall apart, while we were able to kind of keep going and enjoy ourselves. So.
Yeah, I was just reading about your history. You guys have a very kind of unique thing. So like unlike the Robinson brothers of the Black Crows and the Allman brothers of the Allman Brothers and folks like that, you all had independent bands. Like so you didn't get together right away, right? So you had this band
Yeah.
called King Johnson and your
Yep.
brother was in Medeski, Martin and Wood.
Yeah.
And I was reading a little bit. Kevin Calabro, who sent you my way, sent me some of
Yeah.
the articles and stuff, and that you guys were separate, doing separate things for a while, and
Yeah.
then I guess your band opened for Chris's band, and you decided to start playing together after.
Yeah, that's the basic story. I mean, we just Chris is 4 years younger than me, so we went different directions. I ended up in the South. I moved to Atlanta after a little bit of college and figuring things out, and I moved to Atlanta, and so my adult life was in the South. And when Chris left home, he moved to the Northeast and lived in Boston for a while, and then New York City, and then upstate New York, and but we just went separate ways, got into different music scenes, and although we did play music quite a bit for a couple of years there as teenagers, where our schedules at home and our musical passions overlapped, um, we then grew apart both musically and as brothers. And
Mhm.
so, and for more than 10 years, did other things with other people in other places, and just our paths didn't cross that much. So yeah, the time that we did that show together with the King Johnson band and Medeski Martin Wood was an eye opener, because I sat in with Medeski Martin and Wood, and it was so natural and so felt so fun to stand next to my brother and play music, and we just had this awesome realization that we had this deeper connection than the average musical situation, where we just had these psychic moments where it just felt we were watching each other or looking in a mirror or something, and we're like, wow, we're just on the same wavelength. And it's a little bit woo woo sounding, but it sounds, I'm sure it's genetic, there's all kinds of things and shared experiences. So that's what got us excited about, all right, we should hang out and play more. And it wasn't like, let's put a band together right now, but it was just more like, oh, cool, we have something in common, and it helps us bond as brothers again. So
Wow.
that's what started things. And then we would start hanging out, and when family get-togethers, when we'd all visit home for the holidays or something, and made it a point to play music together. And then we started writing together and improvising and sharing ideas, and then we got excited about, oh, let's record something, and then it kind of grew from there.
Was that when you went on when you joined your brother with his band? Was that kind of a spontaneous invitation of that evening, or?
Yeah, 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 and it wasn't necessarily a surprise, but it was not something we talked about at all. It was very casual. I didn't assume. I kind of hoped it would happen, but
You were
yeah,
waiting for the ask.
yeah, but yeah. So, and that's a real improvisational band, Medeski, Martin, and Wood, and my band was less so, more of like a meters meets little feet or some kind, where there's a lot of improvisation in that too. It's just there's a little more structure. So he knew that I was still interested in improvising, and knew that people ask, like, how do you come from such different backgrounds, but really we had a lot of the same early influences, listening to blues and R&B, and maybe some classic jazz records, that we had in common. And so, yeah, we come from the same roots.
Well, and your dad was a folk singer on the Cambridge music scene in the 60s
Absolutely.
as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah.
Before
Yeah.
becoming a scientist, which is sounds kind of notable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did y'all play together when you were younger, like as younger kids, with or without your dad, or?
Um, yeah, a little bit, especially with each other. Like when we were both teenagers, I was late in my teens and he was early in his. And we did play together. I remember we got a 4-track one time for Christmas or something, and we started like recording together and writing little tunes, and maybe occasionally jamming with other people in the garage, stuff like that. So yeah, we totally played together, and Chris was younger. Like I remember showing him how to play a 12-bar blues, um, and I don't take credit for his virtuosity at all. That was him disappearing in his room for years with a bass, and that was his own grit. But we certainly influenced each other right from the beginning, and played together quite a bit. And then occasionally with our dad. I think our dad passed a couple years ago, and luckily we had him sit in on a few Wood Brothers shows before he
Oh,
passed. And
wow.
we were like, why didn't we do that earlier? Because he was really great.
Mm.
But anyway, we played a little bit with our dad when we were young, but sometimes as a teenager, that's when you don't want to hang around with your dad as much. You want to separate yourself somehow. And I think
Yeah. I
so.
mean, it sounds kind of like all of this is sort of like you guys moving through these developmental phases, right? Like
Exactly.
separation from each other as brothers, and then that
Yeah.
beautiful thing of aging, maturing, and coming back
Yeah.
together. So,
Yeah. And to your point earlier about how significant it is that we got together later and put a band together, was that um, we were able to develop ourselves psychologically and musically on our own, and sort of grow up separately out in the world as young men in all different situations, and learning about ourselves. Just you get your identity starts coming together later on in your 20s, and then in your 30s, and etc. So I was in my late 30s when we started the Wood Brothers.
okay, whole nother level of development than rock and
Yeah.
rolling in your early 20s.
Yeah, and a whole nother level of like post baggage. Like we didn't carry any baggage with each other. I just imagine if you were a teenager and you start a band like the Allman Brothers, or like the Kinks, or like the Black Crows, who famously had a lot of friction, maybe at
Yeah.
times. Like there's a lot of baggage. You want your independence. You want to develop. You want your own identity. Sometimes you don't want to be always linked to your sibling. And so I always feel like Chris and I shed a lot of that baggage, and I'm sure we have a little, but a lot less. Like we kind of know who we are, and by the time we put our band together, we had that, and I think that's how we were able to enjoy it, like just creating a new recipe of his music and my music, and
Yeah,
great.
it's beautiful. It makes a lot of sense, right? It's almost like a trope. Like if you think about all these famous historical rock and roll brothers, it always seemed
Yeah,
like part of the story was disagreements, and I'm actually I'm a therapist, so I've done a lot of I'm a single
Ah,
child, so I
yeah,
don't know about siblings and stuff, but I know like from the therapeutic model about siblings and just
abs-
inherent competition is kind of subconscious or conscious part of it. And so then to
absolutely,
be in a band together, I can't imagine how that doesn't manifest itself all the time, especially if you're really
absolutely,
young. So
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I feel really grateful for that part of it. I don't think it would have been the same otherwise.
right. And then so I think your album Puff of Smoke, this is your 13th album. I know you have some studio and some live, but
Yeah,
when I was looking
that's
through
about right.
Discogs.
That's
And
about right.
so your first record, 2006, Ways Not to Lose, you started on the Blue Note record label, which is quite a way to enter into
Yeah,
the world. How did that
yeah.
feel to be on Blue Note? I think your
Oh man.
brother was on them already, but
Yeah, my brother with Medeski and Martin Wood was already on, and Blue Note's known as a jazz label,
Mhm.
but in those early aughts, they had signed Nora Jones,
Of
and
course, yeah.
Amos Lee was another one, and they started getting into a little bit more into the singer-songwriter realm. And
Hmm.
so there was this overlap of, Chris, they were already familiar with what Chris did, but then, oh, he's got a brother who writes songs, and they now have this band that's song oriented, which, probably easier to sell songs than it is instrumental music. I hate to say it, but in general, if you're thinking in terms of a business, which
Right.
a record label is. So as fortunate as that was, and I was very excited, and luckily I had been uh, doing what I was, Chris and I had both were veterans in the music world. Even though I'd been playing crappy bars, I had written a lot of songs, and I just had a sense of myself, and so we were ready for it, and it was awesome. Except that was when that label and many others were really struggling because the model was changing and people were streaming hadn't kicked in, but like
Right.
piracy,
It's
and
just the dawn of all that.
it was the dawn of all that. And so the bigger labels were all sort of struggling and crumbling, and budgets went down and people got laid off. And so our timing was like we just got the tail end of that industry, and
Right.
I think we were ultimately blessed to get out of that situation and into more independence, which is more limiting in some ways, but also then completely artistically free, and we owned our music. And so anyway,
Yeah. Was it all I don't know if this would be a feeling you'd have, but all intimidating to have your first record out on Blue Note with all its history?
absolutely. Like I remember the pretty well known guy Bruce Lundvall was the president of that label, and he had worked with John Hammond and Miles Davis and like huge stuff, and
Hmm.
just sitting in his office in New York City, uh, and him listening to our music and commenting on it was like very intimidating but exciting. I was like, wow, I feel I worked hard for a long time, and this maybe it's paying off, or it felt like a moment in that I treasure for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but then, as things evolve, you realize, I don't know, I don't know if I'd really want a real record deal any today,
Right.
like we joked about the slow rise to the middle thing, but I like the middle if I can do whatever I want, and we can make whatever kind of music we want, and no one's telling us what to do, and nobody owns our music, and I like the middle a lot, and
Yeah.
so
I mean,
that's
most
not the goal for a record label.
of course not. I mean, yeah, like the correspondence of Nora Jones also, like Blue Note still had a lot of money to play with. So at
Good
that point,
point.
yeah.
Good, very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, she sold what, like 7, 8 million
Yeah, I
records or
mean,
something like
she
that.
was probably funding their whole roster for a minute there,
I bet. I bet.
including us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this may, and I can edit this out, and if it's too personal a question, I'm just
No,
curious
no,
about
no.
it. But your brother had gotten pretty big fame. I mean, Medeski Martin and Wood was
Yeah,
a big band, and King Johnson. I mean, no
not
disrespect at
so
all,
much. No, absolutely.
not so much. And so I wonder. I'm just curious about that for you. Now you're all of a sudden on Blue Note, and you know that there's like a wider, maybe I just am wondering about your perspective of that, sort of a bigger audience or a lot of
Yeah,
people listening to you because of your brother's
yeah,
success and all that. So
yeah. Yeah, that had a lot of different emotions tied to it. 'Cause first off, the first thing that comes to mind is I was like, my brother wants to play with me. He wants to be in a band with me and make an album and put it on a major label. I was like, that was some validation and some.
mm,
I just felt great. Like I'm in the league of these guys, and John Medeski wanted to produce our album and our first album, which he did, and I was just like, wow, I'm with uh, the big dogs, or somehow I felt, um, and I also felt a little bit guilty about because King Johnson was sort of fading out as far as one guy passed away, one guy moved away, and we were sort of moving on. I was ready just for some change, so but I felt a little guilty, like survivor's guilt, like I survived the music business. And
mm,
some of my friends who I had been playing with for 10 or 15 years were kind of right where we were. So they didn't have the same opportunity that I had. They had the same talent, the same everything. Like I give them a lot of credit. They're my mentors too.
sure.
So I felt a little guilty, like how come I get this? But I got lucky. I had to be prepared. I had to be good at what I did, and I felt deserving of it. But I also felt guilty. But the other thing you spoke to, I think, was also did I feel like I did feel like, hey, hi, I'm Chris Wood's brother. That was sort of a thing. Like Chris was
Mm,
really well known, at least in certain circles, and I was his brother. You know what I mean?
mm,
And we made jokes about that a lot, but for the most part, I liked being I liked how it felt. Like it all felt very validating and warm and comfortable and a little bit intimidating, but it gave me a lot of confidence that the people that wanted to work with me wanted to work with me. Chris Medeski Martin Wood's manager, Liz Penta with MC Artist Management, she wanted to manage us. Like she loved the music, she got excited about it, and she got Blue Note excited about our demo and got
mm.
us a deal. And so it's like I just felt really validated, like all the work that I had done had really paid off.
Cool. That's such a, I mean, it's a very unique but like wonderfully um heartfelt story. Like I'm really appreciating your honesty about sort of the mixed feelings and emotions
Yeah, I
really
earned that. And to this day, I talk to my old bandmates, those who are still with us, and it's like I still have this little tinge of, you know, I don't want to talk too much about my career stuff because it sounds, I don't know, I'm just very self-conscious about that,
Mm.
gloating anyway.
Even like 20 years on now that it's been the Wood Brothers, and like you guys certainly have your own wonderful big lane that you've created.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Do you feel like it's kind of changed for you over the 20 years in terms of what you're talking about?
the feelings about it.
Yeah.
Um,
That may be too much of the therapist in me asking the
yeah, I
question.
mean it has. I've come to grips with it. Like I feel like I worked hard. It's not that I didn't deserve anything.
Yeah.
And I also feel lucky because I don't know. I always think of the Malcolm Gladwell books, which I geeked out about in that phase, and about just the 10,000 hours. You have to have your 10,000 hours. Well, I had that, but
Hmm.
then you also need to have that lucky perfect storm thing where not you're prepared and this you happen to meet somebody or know somebody. I happen to know Chris Wood really well, and that
Right.
that was a really good in for me
Right.
because his network was awesome. And then I was much more legit, and once I reached that.
I definitely want to get into the music. I have a few sort of more like questions logistically about the band, but one
Yeah,
of the things you mentioned was just your independence, right? You have your own record label, you've got your own studio in Nashville,
yeah.
and your songs are such an amalgamation of so many wonderfully different sources. Like I just want to say that, and we'll talk
Thank you.
more specifically about it, but you definitely sound like a band that's not tethered to a record label or an A&R or any of that. Like you just bring in all these. Again, I want to talk about the specific aspects of that, but it's
Yeah,
an extraordinary experience listening to you guys from that perspective.
thank you, thank you. Well, it does feel like there is a freedom there,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I love talking about that.
Cool. I did want to ask you about the third member of your band. Is it Jano?
Jano,
Jano Rix.
Jano Rix.
How
Yep.
did you? I'll mention his backstory a little bit in
Yep.
terms of fame and all that. But how did you guys connect?
We were on a tour, and one of the other bands, he was playing drums, and
Mhm.
we were on a tour with a multi-band package tour thing, back in 2010 or 11 or some 10 maybe, and we met him, and just that's about the time where we were like trying out drummers and just trying that for how it felt to just. We were playing bigger venues, and it's like we just need to be able to make more noise. And so, and we just really clicked with him, and we liked what he did. And actually, we just knew him as a drummer. We had no idea he was just as good of a keyboard
Yeah,
player.
I mean that's the other thing that's amazing listening to your
It's
music. Yeah,
amazing. And he's a
yeah.
fantastic singer. Like his
Mhm.
harmonies have become a real part of our trademark sound. So everything about him, we got way more than we even knew we got when we hired him. And
And
he's
you
just
didn't
a
even
great
know it.
guy.
You didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah, we didn't
That's
know it at the
amazing.
time. We were just like ready to find somebody that fit in the drum chair. And then he happens to also be just a really great human to be around. And that's pretty important too.
That's awesome. How long were you and Chris the duo before Jono came in?
Uh, I mean, 4, 5 years. Uh, we started doing tours with drummers where we maybe after about 4 years we said every once in a while let's do a special gig and have a drummer.
Mhm.
And then we started hiring a couple people. We actually had Tyler Greenwell, who plays with Tedeschi Trucks band. He
Mhm.
he made our album. He recorded our album with us, uh, Smoke Ring Halo, and he was doing some tours with us after he recorded with us, and then he got snatched up by a Tedeschi truck. So we were like, okay, we do need a permanent guy, and John was just amazing, perfect fit.
Nice. I just want to let listeners know you're tuned to WGDR, WGDH, talking to Oliver Wood of the Wood Brothers. They're going to be playing this coming Thursday at the Flynn Theater. Trio of I'd love to hear you describe your music, but the way I would describe it is it's like Americana with all other kind of non-Americana influences and a pretty thick, heavy funk bottom,
Mm,
which is
nice.
goes right to my heart. So,
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think that's always a tricky one because you don't want to be pigeonholed. So when people ask you what kind of music do you play, that's like the question of doom.
yeah,
And it's like, well, there's a lot of hyphens, a lot of
right,
hyphens. Jazz, rock, blues, country,
right.
gospel, whatever we can think of, African.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like it's I remember seeing the back of a Little Feat album, and it said evocative funk, which I always thought that was cool.
I think you guys have carried that torch.
A little piece of it, for sure. Well, at least we ought try to honor it for sure. But yeah, I always think of it as just like eclectic or alternative roots, or I don't know. There's no once it becomes a name, then it's already ruined. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't like I don't
it's
like the word Americana because it
right.
doesn't it or country or things. A lot of these things, jazz. Like what is jazz? That was
Yeah,
is it Kenny G or is it Miles Davis? That's what
right,
Chris always used to say.
right.
And so anyway. I think you're on though. I think we're really embrace the funkier things, but we also love classic blues, new blues, old blues, R&B, um, and uh, and both John and Chris have a serious jazz background. I have a little bit of that too, and uh, but we love songs, and so yeah, it's just kind of do what we want.
It's all in there. It's like I'm so sort of chomping at the bit to say who or what I heard when I started listening to your
Yeah,
record, but I do want to not do that only because of what you're saying is just sort of like your guys' music, but these just influences of folks who I've just always loved. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's in there.
yeah,
And yet
absolutely.
and yet it's this other thing. The new record, by the way, is called Puff of Smoke,
Yes.
which came out end of last year or
Yeah, I can't
okay.
even remember, but I think that's about right.
And it's on your own Honey Jar Records.
Yep.
How did you guys pick that as a name for your label?
We have a song called Honey Jar that goes back to our album called The Muse. And I'm not sure when we started working with this company called 30 Tigers, which is our distributor
Mhm.
and marketing company. So they're sort of an a la carte label where you bring your own music and they distribute and market. And we needed a name for our label, and it was just I think that was the first thing that came. So,
Cool. I love it.
and when we say label, that doesn't mean what it always means, like what it
Mm.
used to mean. It's just
Right.
it's our imprint, but
Right.
basically our management helps run whatever that entails, and then of course we hire a publicist in Kevin
Mm.
and the marketing people from 30 Tigers, and so it's just kind of a la carte record deal thing,
Yeah.
except we are the label. So
Yeah. I love that you mentioned John Hammond before, because the other thing to mention about Jano Rix is that his dad was the drummer on Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder review, which is
he was one of the
quite a
drummers.
thing to
He was
have
a
on your
percussion.
resume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he and Jana's dad was a really well-known New York session drummer and did a lot of Broadway stuff and played with Bette Midler and Bob Dylan and
Okay.
a lot of big acts back then.
Cool. Luther Rex is his name. I don't know if I mentioned
Luther
it
Rix.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll mention too that they put out a father-son record last year as well.
Wow.
That's really awesome, and them both playing and and singing, both singing lead vocals and great. Like I'm so glad they did that. It made us happy. They did that around the time our dad passed, so we were really into
Wow.
dad mode.
Wow. There's a level of depth to all this. It's really
Yeah,
extraordinary.
yeah,
Yeah. I'd love to hear sort of anything you want to talk about in terms of like particular songs and, what folks can expect on Thursday when they come out to the Flynn to see you.
yeah.
Listening to your record over the last couple of weeks again and again, there's a few songs that just kind of jumped out to me that I have kind of particular questions about, as
Sure,
well as some of the stuff that I read in the interviews with you all talking about it.
sure.
Like the tune Witness, I love in one of the articles you said it sort of has meaning and it sort of doesn't. My favorite kind of songs have that ambiguity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think one thing that can be fun with songwriting in general, and that I think is my favorite thing about it, is accessing your subconscious somehow,
Hmm.
right? And trusting it, and trusting that if you just write, if you give yourself a parameter and a limitation, like I wanted to write a song that had like a list. It lists all kinds of things, right? It's like a list song,
Hmm.
like the Johnny Cash song, I've been to here, I've been to there, right?
Hmm.
I've been everywhere. Or of course the Dylan song, couple of Dylan songs. Anyway, uh, I just like how words sound rhythmically and how they fit together and just cool words like alimony for some reason is such a cool one to sing.
Uh-huh.
Or
Maybe triggering for some people, but a cool one to say.
yeah, and but I think a little bit I just like the I like meditation and Buddhism and stuff, and just talking about how you can be more of a witness to your emotions. You are not your pain. You are not your insecurity. You're not your anxiety, for instance. You can just watch it. It's not you. Yeah.
Right.
And also sometimes when you are really in the zone and you're playing great basketball or great music, it's not you either. You can
Right.
watch yourself do that if you're truly in that zone, in which some people call the moment or whatever.
Yeah.
So I had that vague idea in mind, but for the most part, it's just what cool words go together,
Hmm.
and and uh, and then when you do that and make the puzzle sort of work a little bit, then you go back and you find, oh, your subconscious has painted a picture here that can mean something to you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of great songwriters, that's what happens. And I read, and I'm a super nerd about it, like about both literary writers and people who write prose and poetry, and also people who write songs. I've read lots about that in people's biographies, and that, the idea that you're not in control
Hmm.
of making an amazing work of art, you have to get out of your way.
Right.
And so I love that. So I love writing something and feeling that it was happened quickly. I didn't think about it too much, and then I stepped back. It's like, wow, that really something inside me or out in the universe just came through and made a cool story that means something to me, and it could mean something different to you. You know.
I'm smiling widely, though people can't see that on the radio necessarily. But I wanted to reference a line in the tune, "Is It Up to You," where you talk about this in a way. But I also want to say, like in my other life, my professional career, I'm a therapist and I do a lot of work with dreams, dream work. And
Yeah,
it's so much describing the narrative of the subconscious that has so much to say. It's one of the things I love the most about working with folks in their dreams is that
yeah,
there's all these stories that they're not aware of, that
yes,
connect. And then the line that you have in "Is It Up to You" is you think you found the words to describe the feeling you get when you don't even have to try.
yeah,
If you choose to speak, you can kiss it goodbye.
yeah,
And that really resonates for me because so much of like therapy and healing often is moments where you're not putting the words to the feeling. And so often people will have, especially in their dreams, these feelings come up and you'll ask what that feeling is and people won't have words for it because it's a new thing, and learning that sometimes when you put the words to it,
yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't quite line up. So that lyric to that song just
Cool.
moved me so deeply.
Yeah, I've heard a cool uh, analogy for that. Is like sometimes if you saw a really beautiful butterfly and you watch it and you just like, I gotta have that butterfly, and you catch the butterfly and you get it out of the net and it's not as pretty. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like, you can't hold that stuff. You
Yeah.
you you just have to watch it and honor it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my clients recently had a dream of this wonderful moment that they were in. And then somebody suggested they get a tattoo of the
Mm,
moment. And it was exactly what we're talking about. They got the, once they had interest in getting the tattoo, they lost the
mm,
infiniteness of the moment that couldn't be captured.
yeah, it's pretty fragile.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really curious because you talked about sort of the unplannedness, the improvisational aspect of your songwriting and all that, and that you said in your studio you limit yourself by using a tape machine to record. And I love that paradox of sort of this open stuff, but you're also not running those things through a computer and clipping different parts. That you're just doing it on the tape machine when you're recording.
Yeah, yeah. I think that limitations are really healthy for uh, making you more innovative and making you more creative. And so having infinite choices, for instance, is not good. It's like,
Hmm.
here's what you have to work with. Go. And as opposed to do anything you want. Uh, like if I said write a song about anything you want in 5 minutes, would be harder than if I said write a song with these 10 words in it,
Right. Yeah.
because you would have something to just, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's really good. But the other thing that it does, especially now with computer technology, the limitations make you more present because I found that because you have to be, you can't fix the idea is, oh no, we can't fix everything. You can't do this a million times on because your hard drive is huge and you can just keep
Right.
trying and trying and then fix. And a lot of times when you're in that situation, you just, the back of your mind is saying, oh, I can fix this later.
Hmm.
And that does not keep you present. In order to
That's
be present, it has to be like a show. Like you have to be that present, like you would be at the Flynn Theater when there's people there.
when
You
folks come to see you this coming Thursday. Yeah.
exactly. So you cannot be phoning it in the studio either and expect to it to be just feel good, you know.
Mhm.
And that includes often some mistakes or some things that the best off things that you didn't expect. Like again, you're not in control. Just let it see what
Yeah.
happens because you want to be delighted and you know you want to have some wonder about what's it going
Well,
to end
and
up.
I love that's such a great description because listening to your record, even though we were talking about the different labels and Americana and whatnot, there is an aspect of listening to your record is like you don't know what's gonna about to come in. Like on one of the tunes where there's a Wurlitzer organ, like what? Whoa,
Yeah,
that's not what was going on
yeah,
beforehand. And you guys bring in so many of those. I don't want to call them even necessarily like left turns because it's not like it just jumps from one thing to another, but it's like
yeah,
this unexpected quality that just shows up in the song that
yeah, yeah,
really does something.
yeah. Well, it's a really that's a nice. We could call this a limitation too, but we really try uh, uh, to not fit in, like with the genre thing. Like the idea is
Mhm.
don't try not to fit in to something that you've heard before, you know. And we certainly take elements like, yeah, let's use this meters like thing and put it with this Willie Nelson kind of thing. You know, that's the idea. It's like what these are ingredients, but we've seen them in this configuration. But wouldn't, you know, what's the most counterintuitive thing we could do right now? And then try it. And if nothing else, it leads you down a path of something new and that
Yeah.
you wonder about and that you're delighted by. So,
Yeah. I love I mean, the bands that you're mentioning are great. I guess I will say one of the things that came up for me in one of your tunes, again, not wanting to kind of limit it and give people too much idea about your music, because I encourage them to really dive into it also was a little bit of Dr. John meets cake. Like
ooh,
kind of like came together and I was like, how did they get all these guys on the same stage?
that's awesome. I like that. I
Yeah.
like, yeah.
One of the things you mentioned in one of the articles was being inspired by great African guitar players.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a couple that you could name or kind of talk about specifically and how that
Yeah.
plays in this.
Um, Yeah, there's a guy named, I mean, some of these, there's a lot of African guitar players. I don't know anything about them other than what they sound like.
Hmm.
My brother turned me on to this. I wish I could remember who even put this out, but he gave me a DVD once of all these like African folk players. Like they were in little villages with crappy little silver tone guitars or Sears guitars
Hmm.
doing this beautiful finger picking that was very simple yet not easy to learn because rhythmically it's just so different than what we're used to. But it was like watching an old blues guy, but flip flopped some in another universe.
Mm.
Um, so I learned the stuff that influenced me the most. I don't know. They're not like household names at all.
Okay.
But there was one I specifically was drawn to named Daniel Kachamba, who's
Hmm.
worth looking up. And highly inspired a song we have called Postcards from Hell that we've been doing for years, but just the guitar part. And that song Witness, I think the guitar riff on that was inspired a little bit by the only name I can remember is this guy, DeGary, D apostrophe Gary, I think. And he has like a one name, and he's more well known. And I haven't listened to him that much. I just know a couple little. I just have this memory of a sound that he gave me, and that little. It's a different. It's an alternate tuned guitar, and so anyway, those are a couple. But yeah, I just love the that it's different. There's different emphasizes different things about the timing, and it's often very melodic and pretty. You know.
Yeah. So a couple of other just sort of background music questions.
Okay.
Because you're what you're talking about is these different influences that come in
Yeah.
around stuff. I was wondering if you could name a few of your favorite trios, since y'all
Three is
since y'all are a trio that kind of
yeah.
have really meant something to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. I mean, Hendrix, just
Hmm.
most any of those combinations with Hendrix, for sure. Band of Gypsies, especially maybe, or later, I really came to appreciate that. Um, and what's another good trio? Um, I'll tell you what. A more recent one that I remember was, and this is a more contemporary, but I remember 10 years ago when the Avett brothers were a trio.
Oh wow, okay.
And not drums either. It was bass,
Hmm.
banjo, guitar. And I saw them before they became a big band.
Right.
They were like punk folk, like punk bluegrass, or I don't know what they were, but I absolutely loved it. It was like super raw and just the three. I'm blanking on other trios at the moment,
Those
uh,
two are good.
but there's an old one and a new one,
Mm.
um, and I mean here's a totally unknown one, but I used to go. So in my band King Johnson, uh, the bass player Chris Long is like a mentor of mine, and I got to know him by going to see a band he played in Atlanta, just a bar blues band called Red Dog. And it was Donnie McCormick was the drummer, and Jeff Higgins was a guitar player. But Donnie McCormick, also a mentor and an incredible drummer and singer and unique unsung hero, who the song "Postcards from Hell" is about, actually. And anyway, just seeing what three. There's something about the power of three is pretty cool, and I think again, it's one of those limitations that makes you innovate. And when Chris and I were a duo, we really got off on how can we make this more than a duo
Hmm.
without a third person. And so I would beat on the guitar somehow, or Chris learned how to play harmonica. You got a harmonica rack, and he could solo on the harmonica or play pads, and it was awesome. And
Hmm.
we're very much like that with Jano. Like before, we knew Jano could play keyboards, but we're like, could you do it at the same time? And he's like, I can try. And then
Oh,
a couple years later, he's doing it all. And
that's
so
so he's drumming and playing keyboards at the same time.
at the same time, I mean,
Wow.
you're asked what to expect at the Flynn Theater. If you haven't seen that yet, it's pretty great. And
Mm.
it's cool because it makes you play drums a little differently too, which is always refreshing. And if you see Chris play harmonica while he's playing the bass, upright bass, you don't see that very
I
often.
was going to ask if it was the upright bass he played while doing harmonica.
He can do either one at
I
this
don't know
point.
if I've
I mean,
ever seen that. I love that.
it's really cool. So, um, yeah, so I'm just a regular old sing and play guitar guy. I feel inadequate. I have to remember lots of lyrics. Um,
Mm.
anyway, again, the trio. A beautiful thing about the trio um, is the limitations and what it makes you do. And I've always liked. I think what turned Chris and I on about being a duo and trying stuff out uh, was just the stripped down part about it. What if you take all the like King Johnson was a six-piece band. There was horns and of
Wow.
course Medeski, Martin Wood. Those guys were a huge sounding trio. That's
Yeah.
another trio we should mention.
We should mention them. It's definitely
Incredible.
relevant. Yeah.
Holy mackerel. Such
Yeah.
an influence on me and my band with King Johnson too.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so but we liked the idea, what if you took away all the loud stuff or the stuff that if you just heard the words really well and the the foundation was very basic and Chris is such a great bass player. He has so much rhythm to him, and he's such a distinctive player that you might lose that in a bigger situation, but it really gets to be featured in this smaller ensemble thing.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I'm just imagining how this is all going to sound at the Flynn. Have you played the Flynn before?
We have, yeah, we've
Yeah.
been
So
playing in
just
Burlington for years, and
okay.
we've only played at the Flynn maybe once or twice before. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
Just a marvelous venue to feel for you guys to fill in with the way you're describing your music. It just seems like
Yeah,
such a perfect, beautiful setting for
yeah,
that. And so
yeah.
that's coming up this Thursday at the
Yes,
Flint,
sir. Yes, sir.
June 11th. Viv and Riley opening up for y'all.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun night.
Yeah. So thank you, Oliver Wood, so much for this. We're going to listen to a bunch of your tunes. We do have a pair of tickets to give away to your show,
Awesome.
and look forward to hearing all of it
Awesome.
in the
Can't
grand.
wait.
So
Ben, thank you, Ben. I enjoyed our conversation. It was
you're
great.
welcome. Here, let me just
Thank
finish
you.
I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
So.